Hey, video reel. Hey, how you doing? You're here. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. How's it going? How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Want to listen to a few of the old stories? I'm getting relaxed here, getting ready to go to sleep. Yes, I guess it is. I guess, hey, oh, we got Alicia. That's me and Alicia and video reel. We're here to hear the old stories from days of old. Yes, we are. Going to read some from here. This is from Nicole. Woohoo! Trickling in. This is from the Good Old Days magazine. Came out. This issue is 1986. August. That is a long time ago, isn't it? Some of you weren't even born then, I'll bet, were you? Hey, Liza. Hi, Larky. Farm wife. Hey, Pitbull. Yes, I can see you. Right, farm wife? Pitbull, Carolyn said you are not blocked. She said she even wrote to you to tell you that you are not blocked. Okay, Pitbull? You okay? Hey, Danielle. The other Danielle. Okay, we're just going to get right to it. You guys lay back and relax and enjoy the stories, okay? This one is Boyhood Days in New York City. Part 2. We don't have part 1. I don't even know if this is a guy or a girl. I read some of it before I came live. We lived in a Brooklyn market district right across the street from a chicken market. They had vendors who sold produce from their carts. There was a lot of activity, and it was interesting just taking a walk. I'd walk down from my apartment house, and there would be hundreds of vendors and people milling about. We played the typical kid games right on the street. We had a game of Chinese handball against the buildings. Another game used 4 corners of the street. At the intersection, you kick the can and run from base to base. And we'd take tin cans and clamp them on our shoes and run down the alleys with them. We were not deprived, basically. We want of things for want of things to do, and we didn't just wander around. Oh, we played checkers a lot. Halloween, we went from apartment to apartment, but we never left our own building. I never missed a Saturday going to the movies. Our parents sent us there with lunch and said, "Don't come back." We went at noon and came home at 8. Boy, that's a long day at the movies. It was a full double feature, a short comic cartoon, a chapter serial. That was what kept us coming, the Green Hornet. I remember my mother taking me. That's the way we got all of our dishware. Every time you went in, you got a piece of china, a plate, cup, or saucer, whatever they were giving away that week. Next week, something else. Different theaters had different patterns, but we didn't care if they matched. And on Sundays, my father went to the movies religiously. He saw every Hopalong Cassidy film they ever made. Gabby Hayes was also his favorite. They could do no wrong. There were like 20 movie theaters in my neighborhood within walking distance. When we played hooky from school, we went to the movies. They opened at 10 in the morning. Ma was a very good cook and housekeeper. She couldn't read or write. neither English nor her native tongue. One thing I remember most, I spent months teaching her how to write her name. She wanted to become a citizen of the US above all else. I was 9. Every day we'd work until she knew how to write her name. She eventually learned to speak English, but it was very broken. My brother died when he was very young. I lost my mother when I was 11. I grew up in the period when she was becoming mentally disturbed, and she got worse and worse until she had to be put away. She didn't recognize me when I'd go with Pa to visit her. This hurt. I remember the period as being very unpleasant. From age 11, I was on my own. Nobody was there to take care of me when I got home from school. I had to carry my own key. Mother lived for another 9 years. She was in her 50s when she died. She kept getting worse all the time. I couldn't take it anymore, but Pa continued to go every Sunday. He'd get on the trolley car with a little sandwich for her. She always recognized him. He didn't miss a Sunday. I saw an extraordinary kind of devotion there between the two. Hi, Denise. Get a drink. Okay, Pitbull, but yeah, I don't know why nobody can see you because she said you're not blocked. Why does my voice always get like this when I start to read out loud? Sorry. During the summer, I'd come to Albany and visit my uncle for 3 or 4 days. He had a house. By no means was it a big one, but it had trees. I'd go back home and I'd cry all the time. It was such a bad experience having to go back after spending that time with cars, trees, lawns, all the nice things of life. It wore off after a while. He had a plum tree in the backyard. He picked a plum and gave it to me. That was just unheard of. In our neighborhood, well, grass was something you didn't step on. It was like an area in the park. You walked the paths. My parents never ever went to visit my school. School to them was officialdom, must have represented to them government or the czar. They wanted, above all else, I should get a good education, but they didn't want to get involved with anybody that looked like an official. We had a PTA, but they were for second generation parents. Pa didn't even know what a PTA was. The only time I ever remember him going to school was once when we had an open house at night. He came, he liked it, and he went home, and that was it. I went to a very good high school, a special school, one of the top schools in the city. I had to take a special test to get in. It was very, very competitive. We had football, basketball, radio, and TV work, but I didn't participate in many. We didn't go back to school for anything at night. That cost money. It meant riding the subway. I don't know of anybody that went back to school after 4 o'clock. We didn't go back for a dance, plays, or a concert. They were held during the day. I never appreciated the difficulties until recently, all the labors and hard times my parents went through. It took a lot of guts for these people to come to America. In later years, my father had it much easier. Although he never said so, I knew how much his cherished dream of me attaining a high education and a very good position meant to him. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Hey, Whisper. Let's see. there was one in here about medicine, I think it was. Thought maybe it was interesting. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'll get right to it. Let me find it. Early day doctoring. See if that one's any good. What happened to the boy? He grew up, I guess, Alicia. I guess he grew up. That was it. That was all the story from that one. And these people here look so old. I don't know if you guys can see the picture here. Mike. Yeah, turkey. This lady right here, she is in her early 20s. It's made from a tintype of grandmother Jane Ann Norman. She was in her early 20s at this time. Her husband died at age 45, leaving Jane Ann with 6 children to support. I guess when you really, really look at her, you can see she is young. Alicia, right there. Early 20s. They just dressed so freaking old, I think is what it was, right? Maybe. Plus, they did have harder lives, you know? They didn't have to work a lot. You're eating a fresh plum. Okay, this is Early Day Doctoring by Margaret Underwood. At first, Mom thought she had spells of indigestion. Every once in a while, her right side would hurt for a couple of days. The pain would then ease back to mild discomfort. Finally, a day came when the pain was much worse. The nearest doctor, Dr. Ingersoll of Ephrata, Washington, 12 miles from our town of Adrian, Washington, was summoned by phone, and he was definite in his diagnosis. Mrs. Norman, you have acute appendicitis and must be operated on right away. Mother was equally definite. I won't go to any hospital, and that is that. Dad tried to convince her. Pearl, the doctor says if your appendix burst, you'll get gangrene and die. I'm sorry, Frank, but I had enough of hospitals when my children were born. I would rather die than go to a hospital again. I guess her mind is made up, doctor. Is there any other way she can be helped? The doctor said reluctantly, I have seen a few cases where the patient wasn't operated on, but I warn you, it is risky. Just tell us what to do and we'll do it. First, you'll have to use ice packs on the painful area for several days. No solid food at all. She's to have doses of mineral oil each day and the juice of oranges. No small horses yet, or turkeys, except for Mike's. The doctor's orders were carried out to the letter. It was a worrisome time for the family. Mom slept in a bed in the living room. Day after day, ice packs were wrapped and applied to the feverish area on her right side. I always thought you died from appendicitis if they didn't get it out. The house seemed so different without mom bustling about making meals, doing washings, ironing, and then many tasks that mothers seem to do that aren't noticed until they're left undone. We four children, ages 7, 9, 10, and 11, had to learn to be more independent during this time. Wow, the parents didn't take much of a break. 7, 9, 10, and 11. Father had always helped with household chores, so he kept things running more or less smoothly. We were warned to not pester our mother. After the first week dragged by, Mom felt a little better, and the doctor had to admit she seemed to be improving. Once Mom was feeling better, it was a treat to be able to sit by her bed for a few minutes and just visit with her. Ordinarily, it seemed she was too busy to just chat. I was 9 years old that year, and I remember yet confiding to Mom my most secret dream. It was a dream that someone would abandon a baby on our doorstep with a note that it was to be given to me. I was too near in age to my youngest sister to remember her as a baby, and to me, a baby seemed like a toy that could be played with, then put down when I felt like doing something else. Mom must have smiled at my innocence. Anyway, at the end of a long month, Mom was back on her feet and back to her busy routine. The living room was once more just a living room, and although she lived to be 87 years old, she never had trouble with her appendix again. To understand how a later accident happened to me, you will have to picture a skinny, freckle-faced, red-haired girl child sitting in an old round wash tub. I am shouting, "Mama, this bath water is cold." Mama answers from where she's working in the kitchen. "It is warm enough. Just scrub yourself and get out of the tub so Pearlie can bathe." "No, Mama, Jane took too long to bathe and the water is cold. I want a warm bath." Ugh. You know how they used to have to always take baths after the other, one after the other? The water in the tub had been hand pumped from the well in the backyard, heated in the wash boiler on the wood range, and dipped with a cooking kettle to pour in the tub. We had no bathroom, but the small storage room off the kitchen gave us privacy for summer bathing. Sister Jane, being the oldest of we three girls, was given the privilege of the first use of the bath water. She may have finished her turn quickly enough, and I might have dawdled, but at all events, the water had cooled. "Please, Mama, couldn't I have some more hot water?" "Oh, all right, Margie. The tea kettle is boiling. I will bring in some water." Mama hurried into the room carrying the heavy cast aluminum kettle. "Now you get clear of the tub. This water is boiling hot." Bubbling with laughter, I got out of the tub, except for one leg, which was near the edge of the water. "You start pouring, and I'll jump out," I teased. Just as Mama started pouring the stream of boiling water, I jerked my foot upward. Ooh, I can feel that, can't you? The bottom of the tub was soapy, and my leg slipped under the water gushing from the spout of the kettle. I shrieked with pain. Carrying me to a cot in the kitchen, Mama ran to the home of Rose Short across the street. Rose was a calm, serene person, a good friend to have in emergencies. She said to Mom, "Get several potatoes and your grater." "Hey, Tracy." As fast as she could work, Rose grated the raw potatoes and packed them around my leg. As soon as the air couldn't reach the burn, the pain stopped as if by magic. The coldness of the potatoes kept the burn from going deeper into the tissues. In a couple of days, the leg developed huge blisters, but Mama used an ointment called unguentine, and kept the burn covered lightly with strips of soft, worn sheeting. In a few weeks, the burn had healed with no scars. Another time, when we had to call our rough and ready Dr. Ingersoll, was when my sister cut her ankle deeply on the edge of a metal can. The doctor was only called when there was no other choice, and the gaping cut wouldn't stop bleeding. Alicia. Yeah, Denise, they had to though, right? The doctor was a heavy drinker, but never seemed to be so drunk that he forgot his doctoring skills. It took around an hour for the doctor to travel to 12 miles to Ephrata to Adrian, and the first order he gave was for a couple of strong people to hold the patient still while he sewed. This didn't seem to be in the days of pain-killing shots, or else he didn't believe in them. With my sister held down firmly by helpful neighbors, the doctor proceeded to slosh iodine in the open cut and take stitches, while my sister's screams would have put a steam whistle to shame. The rest of us cringed in sympathetic terror with our hands over our ears. Oh, that sounds horrible. That poor kid. Iodine and stitches and no pain relief. I must grant the fact that the cut healed nicely without infection. It was also a perfect object lesson for the rest of us to watch our steps more carefully. For some reason, there were no broken bones in our family. None of the 6 members of the family had any broken bones. Maybe our diet, rich in milk, butter, and eggs, and low in desserts, gave us strong bones. Or maybe we were all extra cautious. After all, we shouldn't want to risk having to have a visit from our good Dr. Ingersoll. Our grandmother Jane was born in 1850 and grew up with a firm belief that any medicine that didn't taste horrible couldn't possibly cure any ailment. Mother, born in 1884, agreed with her mother-in-law in many of her ideas. They both trusted implicitly in castor oil, Epsom salts, quinine, sulfur, and molasses, and the judicious application of Sloan's liniment. Mother did balk at grandmother's urging that she tie small bags of asafoetida, ASAFETIDA, around our scrawny necks to ward off colds in the winter. My rather ancient dictionary describes asafoetida as a fetid, inspiciated sap from a large umbelliferous plant found in Central Asia and used as an antispasmodic. This is technical language used to fill the pages of a dictionary. The whole subject could have been covered in 2 words. It stinks. Martha. Alicia. It's old days stories, Alicia. Stories from the old days. See, Denise knows what we're talking about. Okay, Alicia. Let's see. Growing up, we had the benefit of mustard plasters, onion plasters, and smelly ointments guaranteed to loosen our colds, but we lived anyway. Grandmother Jane seldom ever saw the inside of a doctor's office. The thought of the $2 office fee plus the 12-mile trip to Ephrata generally made grandmother decide to wait a day or two and see if I get better. She generally did. It's okay. I'm teasing. Once in a while, her faith in doctors would revive, and she would come back from her visit to him with a brown glass bottle of medicine guaranteed to work miracles. We would watch her pull the cork from the bottle, wet a finger with a couple drops of the liquid, and taste it. Smacking her lips a few times, she would declare, "I know what is in this, and it isn't what I would use it. And it isn't what I would use for what I've got." Then she would store the bottle in her cupboard and proceed to get well without the help of the magic elixir concocted by the hard-working doctor. After all, she had successfully... Oh, that scared me. I thought it was the cat.
It was.
Oh.
Mittens.
Oh, okay. After all, she had successfully raised 6 children. And that doctor probably didn't have as much experience as she did.
Hi, Tracy and Alicia. Hey, everyone. Just looking at her something to eat.
You got a couple more people saying hi.
Hi. Hi, Denise Cormier. Whisper to me and Mike.
Okay, where were we here? Let's see. If a grandchild happened to pass by when grandmother was checking the taste of the medicine, she would pour a little of the liquid into a spoon and insist the child drink it. She would say, "It will do you more good than it will me." We learned at an early age to disappear fast if Grandma had a bottle in her hand. Since she lived with us, maybe the medicine helped her get a little relief from 4 noisy, pesky grandchildren. Grandmother died at the age of 82 when I was 10 years old. She never lived to hear of antibiotics and the many medicines that cure disease today. If she could walk down the aisles of a modern drugstore, she would no doubt pick up a bottle of medicine, unscrew the cap, taste a drop from a fingertip, and declare, "I know just what is in this stuff and it won't cure me." Nicole said it's nice to see you, Lex.
Nice to see you too, guys.
Okay. A long 28 minutes. We're the late club tonight, aren't we? The late club. Let's see. My Mother and the Big-Mouthed Bass. We got a little cartoon drawing. This is by Retha M. Stevens. I have never been able to figure out whether I have lived this long because I ate so much fish when I was small, or that I am enjoying life now that I don't eat it very often. My parents both loved to fish. There was always plenty of that to eat. We had small sunfish, bluegills, and occasionally a large-mouthed bass, my mother's favorite game fish. You got a second win, Mike. Let's see. It was the frisky bass that led my mother through a comedy of errors that I have never forgotten. Saturday was fishing day for our family, and we usually went to a small lake a few miles from our Michigan home. We arrived at Fisher's Landing about 10:30 in the morning on a warm Saturday. The sun was getting pretty high, so my father decided to park our Buick touring car in a grove of shade trees at the top of a small hill that ran down to the lake. There were some nice grassy places where we could spread a blanket and have lunch. Just a minute, let her get her popcorn out. They're all hearing your popcorn.
No, it's a whole pizza stuck in the bag.
Oh, good. Okay.
And I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Huh?
I don't know what popcorn you guys are talking about.
Let's see. Dad, always anxious to start fishing, immediately went to see Mr. Fisher in the pop stand to rent a small rowboat. The pop stand was the location for anything you needed or wanted while at the lake. He had all kinds of cold drinks, bread, cookies, candy, fishing gear, and bait. Let's see. I always enjoyed the hand-lettered sign that read, "We don't know where Mom is, but we have pop on ice." Oh, that sounds good, Tracy. Mother and I started to unload the car. About the time this was done, my father came back and said, "We have a boat, so I'll take the gear down." Mother replied, "Fine, I'll stay here with the car." She did not know, thankfully, how long she would be with the car. The day was now getting quite warm, and we were thirsty. Mother sent me to the pop stand to get 3 bottles of knee-high orange drink. I had no more than reached it when I heard Mother start to scream, "Help, help." I looked back at our car and could not believe my eyes. The car was moving and Mother was trying to hold it back. At least that is the way that it appeared. I ran back as fast as I could and found that her clothes seemed to be caught on the car. Mother was an original. She never went any place unless her hair was done up neatly in a bun or a coronet braid, and she had on her sturdy one-piece corset with stays in the back and laces up the front. Even to the lake, she wore a fine muslin dress and slip because no one wore slacks. "Mother, what happened?" I cried as I stood there terrified. Almost in one sentence, she yelled back, "The car started to move. I tried to stop it. The door handle caught on my corset laces. Go get some help." Father was down at the lake and wouldn't hear me if I called. I ran to get Mr. Fisher, but he had already heard the screams and was on his way. With him was his teenage son and another man. We all set about trying to stop the car, but at best, all we could do was slow it down a little. Mother was still screaming at the top of her voice, her long hair flying loose. Nobody could free her while the car was still moving. That old 4-door touring car was a heavy beast, and miraculously, it wound its way through the trees without hitting a one and stopped only when it came to the soft sand of the beach. My father, standing by the boat, couldn't believe his eyes either when he saw Mother still hanging onto the car. Before we could get her clothes loose from the door handle, Mother was still in good voice cried, "Oh, Jep." His name was Jasper, but she always called him Jep. "My dress is ruined and my hair is a mess. To say nothing of the bruises I may have. Why didn't you set the brakes on that darn car?" she wailed. "I thought that I had," he replied quietly. After comforting her and seeing that she had no serious injuries, My father said, "If you had told me that you wanted to have lunch on the beach, I would have brought it down for you." I saw in my mother's eyes that she was mentally hitting him with her corset. That way she could get even with the both of them. Mother's name was Eva. I don't know the origin, but she had an indomitable spirit. Nothing ever seemed to fluster her very long. She straightened her tall frame, threw back her hair, and exclaimed, "Get the lunch and load up. We will eat in the boat, and I'm going to catch a big mouth bass." With that, she marched off to the restroom, which was an outside privy in those times. While she was gone, we trudged up the hill to get the lunch. My father also made arrangements with Mr. Fisher to pull the old Buick out of the sand and tow it to the main road. As we came back to the beach, Mother was standing by the boat, looking quite composed after her ordeal. She had on her big straw bonnet and urged my father and me to put on our hats. There wasn't much conversation as my dad pushed us out to sea, so to speak, with an oar. The water was very quiet and the sun hot as my folks readied their gear. Mother sat in one end of the boat with a rod and reel, while my dad sat in the other end with a still fishing pole. He would use worms for bait, and Mother would use hand-tied flies for casting. I sat in the middle with my dolls as they talked back and forth over my head. I was about 10 years old, and I must confess to getting motion sickness, especially when Mother stood up in the boat to cast her line. Soon, my father broke the silence by shouting, "I have something on my line." Mother dourly alternated with, "I haven't yet, but I will." During the next hour or so, my father caught about a half dozen small panfish. He was all smiles. Mother was still casting away with no results. Suddenly, the boat started to rock, and Mother began screaming. Let's see. Mother began screaming. Hold on 1 minute. Oh, Mike, thank you so much, Mike. That's so sweet of you. I really appreciate that, Mike. You know you didn't have to do it. Thank you, Mike. Let's see. Suddenly the boat started to rock, and Mother began screaming. Again, Jep, there's a big fish on my line." "Well, reel him in," Dad shouted loudly as I covered my ears. Mother almost fell out of the boat in her excitement as my father lunged forward to coach her on reeling in the catch. Although she struggled to recover her stance, she fell to her knees on the hard wooden boat seat and stayed there. Thinking back, I'm not sure that either of my parents could swim. I knew that I could not make it to shore. I simply hung on tightly as the boat continued to rock. Mother would not reel in the fish too fast. She loved letting him play the line. It was exciting. If it was a largemouth bass, he would tug on the line and swim back and forth many times, trying to free himself. We were all very quiet now as Mother gradually reeled in the fish. My father crouched next to her, the net ready, concentrating with her on getting and keeping the big prize, whatever it was. Eventually, both Mother and the fish tired of the game. Reeling in the last bit of line, she swung him into the waiting net and sat down. "It's a largemouth bass. What a great catch," my father exclaimed. Mother beamed at him before she looked down to examine her scratched knees. Although Mother loved to fish, she could never bring herself to take the hook out of the fish's mouth. It was my father then who expertly freed the fish and picked up the scales to weigh it. 2 3/4 pounds, Eva, shouted Dad over my head again. Mother rejoined ecstatically, "Oh, Jep, isn't he beautiful? I just knew that I could do it." I looked back at Mother. Her expression was one of complete satisfaction as she savored her triumph. It was now past mid afternoon. Long shadows would soon cover our spot on the lake. You could hear the mosquitoes calling each other to the eating tryst. It was time to head home. Mother would tease Father by repeating, "I only catch the fish, I never clean them," every time we went fishing. As my father cleaned their catch, Mother started the supper. The fish would be dipped in beaten egg and rolled in flour before being fried in butter. The bass would be put on ice and saved for Sunday dinner. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, I love fresh fish. Mm. Especially the little sunfish. They're so good. Thank you, Tracy. I'm glad. You never fished, Alicia? Really? Oh, wow. I'd like to see you fishing. You have to come to our cottage. Teach you how to fish. Hey, a heart made wise. Glad you're here. Now I want fresh fish. Maybe I'll get Dave to catch me some tomorrow. Let's see. Mother's Day had not yet ended. She was to have one more near catastrophe visited upon her. While sitting at the table enjoying our meal, Mother suddenly jumped to her feet and headed for the kitchen. "Good Lord," cried my father. "Your mother has a fishbone caught in her throat again." He rushed to the kitchen too, grabbing some bread along the way. Mother always ate a small piece of bread when this happened. I could hear my dad slapping her on the back to help dislodge the bone. When the emergency was over, Mother came back through the dining room and announced, "I'm going to bed." Poor Mother with a bruised middle, scratched knees, and now a sore throat. Who could blame her? I sat staring at the remaining fish and dirty dishes. Now you know why I don't eat much fish anymore. Let's see. Thought I heard rain. It's raining. We do too, Mike. We release 99% of them, if not 100 even. Things I Never Knew My Mother Taught Me by Patricia Happel Cornwell. There's a little drawing. As an ambitious career woman, I always thought of my business owner father as my primary role model. As a child, I dreamed not of being a mommy in an ivory-covered cottage, but of owning my own business. One day it was a retail shop, the next a cattle ranch. My mother and I have always been good friends, except for a brief period when I was an obnoxious teenager and confided only in my horse. But for years, I have been unable to put my finger on exactly what my mother's legacy has been. Finally, I decided to make a list of things my mother had imparted to me. At first, they were little things, even silly things. One of the things she taught me was to make lists. But as I sat smiling, thinking about my life at Mother's knee, some wonderfully important lessons became obvious. My mother never preached, except to repeat, "If there's one thing I can't stand, it's a liar." But the powerful principle of osmosis prevailed. Mother taught my brother and me what was important simply by living her life in full view of our young eyes. And everyone knows the eyes are the windows of the soul. My list of lessons learned is a motley remembrance of childhood, mine, and motherhood, hers. I wonder if my mother knows what she taught me. to make do with my brother's hand-me-down shirts, with wild blackberries to fill a pie, with a refrigerator crate for a spaceship, to never go to town in curlers. You never know who you'll meet. To be a lady, to make jam if life hands you wash tubs of ripe grapes or an acre of strawberries too ripe for market. My mother once fell asleep on her feet at midnight while stirring a pot of boiling jelly. Ah. To regard breakfast as a hot meal, to value family above possessions, and to hold on to family and friends for dear life, to finish what I start, to sing out loud when I'm happy, to pray like mad when things go wrong, to work as hard as it takes, to stay married, to make a home, to pay the bills, to beat an illness, to tuck in my child with a kiss every night without fail, to never give up, most of all on myself. I can't say my mother was tireless. When I was small, she was always pale and exhausted, hindered for years by an undiagnosed illness. But she was never too tired to fry the fish we kids caught, never too tired to find the candles so we could play dominoes when the lights went out, never too tired to curl my hair for church on Sunday. She never said, be a hard worker. She didn't have to. A weak woman would have given up during the year of 20,000 baby chicks, 2 children, a menagerie of farm animals, ripening crops of tomatoes, strawberries, and corn, and a husband who was out of town 5 days a week. A weak woman would have moved back to the city when the cows broke down the fence and went visiting, or when the well went dry, or when the mortgages on the farm and the business came due at the same time. But when she was 20 years old, she said, for better or for worse, to an equally stubborn young man, and she meant it. Finish what you start. Nearly 20 years ago, my gotta find the page. My mother had surgery for cancer. We all grieved, but she kept her cheery disposition. If you expect the worst, that's what you'd get, she'd say. Now she is healthier than she has ever been in her life, enjoying retirement with my father, who is a very lucky man. She's no quitter, this mother of mine. She never gives up, and she never stops smiling. And she has no idea how much she has taught me about life. That's sweet. You want homemade jam too? I want fresh fish. This one's Miss Luddie and the Foundling Home by S.S. Lambert. We all want fish. You always make it sound so darn good. You know, this food. Perhaps Miss Luddie Amel Rack. Why do they have to have the hardest pronounced name sometimes? Perhaps Miss Luddie Amel Rack had the kindest heart of all the Rack sisters. It's W-R-A-C-K. There were 5 sisters in the huge old white clapboard home with the grand front porch on Cowper Street. It was Miss Luddie who undertook to teach the neighborhood bully his catechism, and it was she who taught me the meaning of words like covet. Look into your cat's eyes the next time your mama has a fish dinner. Then you will know the meaning of the word covet. Everything's about fish, it seems like, in here tonight. It was she who took me into the church for a quiet talk and a sip of the unblessed wine upon the occasion of my first heartache when I was 7. And it was she who patched up the neighborhood dollies. Actually, she ran a doll hospital, only it was a tiny bit misleading to walk down Cowper Street and see a large blue and white sign proclaiming Baby Hospital and Foundling Home. The Rack sisters bore this slightly out of kilter quirk in their lives with mixed emotions. At times, they bore it with grace and dignity. At other times, they became quite cross about it, but the sign remained, and they soon forgot about it. After all, each one had her duties and could spare little time to cope with futile battles. Miss Grace, the eldest, cooked for the entire household on even-numbered days. Miss Evelyn, second oldest, cooked on odd-numbered days. Neither cleaned up, a job put off until near catastrophe. Thus, the kitchen, a large sunny room in the back, was nearly always an area of disaster. Hi, Pamela Patrick. Fishy story. Sounds like these are what you would call the old spinsters back in those days, you know? Like if a lady was, heaven forbid, 35 and not married, she was a spinster. Let's see, I think I already. Thus, the kitchen, okay, it was a disaster. Pots, pans, and dishes of every size, shape, and purpose made tin enamel mountains on the long table from one end to the other. The kitchen bore 2 stoves, one gas, the other electric, which faced each other from opposite ends of the room. Piles of magazines, books, a wringer washer, 2 stray windows, 6 chairs, and a 10-gallon tank of fish vied for whatever space remained. To another sister, Miss Magnolia, fell the chore of cleaning whenever, however, and wherever possible. It was most often impossible, for there was no remaining space to put anything. The 5th sister, Miss Rose, ran the corner grocery store. Here was the task to bring in any cash money. Aside from the small pittance and enormous satisfaction Miss Ludi made from her doll hospital. It was inevitable, I suppose, that the inevitable must happen, thanks to the sign on the front porch. Miss Ludi, Miss Magnolia, and Miss Rose were sitting around sewing, reading, and talking one early summer night, listening to the frogs croaking, while Miss Evelyn and Miss Grace banged pots and pans in the kitchen. An occasional firefly batted itself against a window pane. The oscillating fan swung its head to and fro, gently drawing a small breeze from the open front door through the sitting room. Suddenly, into this peaceful medley arose a strange cry. "Listen, girls, what was that?" whispered Miss Rose, her needle poised in midair. "Oh, nothing, Rose. Just the O'Harrigan's Siamese cat again," replied Miss Magnolia, not looking up from her book. The strange, strangled cry again cut through the sultry night. Miss Ludi rose, dropping her tatting. "Girls, I think there's a baby out there. Someone must be at the front door." The threesome hesitated a moment more, straining to hear over the crashing in the kitchen. In the brief interlude of silence, a thin cry wafted from the front. "That's no cat," declared Miss Ludi, hastening to the front door. She snapped the porch light on and peered out. A small cry arose from her feet. A battered cardboard box sat by the door. From the folds of a worn blue blanket, a tiny fist waved. It was a baby. "Aw, hi, Denise Renee. You had tilapia tonight." And Mike, you never knew about a spinster? Goldfish here. Oh, gosh. Oh, a baby, a baby, a baby. Oh, merciful heaven. Someone's left us a baby, cried Miss Rose, on the brink of a swoon. "Don't you dare faint, Rose," ordered Miss Ludi, as she carefully lifted the baby from its box. Its face screwed up, and it gave a mighty wail. These sound like the Golden Girls, don't they? Just a few generations ahead of the Golden Girls, before the Golden Girls. "Oh, the poor thing must be hungry," declared Miss Ludi, clutching her bundle to her shoulder as she turned toward the kitchen. Miss Grace, elbow deep into dishwater, froze in shock. Miss Evelyn dropped a large gray pot, which rolled under the table. Somehow, in the commotion and clutter, they resurrected a bottle left by one of their young cousins, and soon peace somewhat reigned. The five sisters, get me a drink. Alicia. You don't eat fish, Denise? I love fish. Any kind of seafood and fish. Yeah. Let's see. The five sisters sat in a circle watching the baby drink its milk while Miss Ludi, I'm going to say Ludi, gently rocked him. They asked dozens of questions of each other as to how this event came to be, but each, deep in her heart, knew it was because of the sign on the front porch that plainly said Baby Hospital and Foundling Home. They were Christian ladies with characters strong in charity, and not one raised a word of blame toward Miss Ludi. They were, however, greatly concerned as to the outcome of this venture. During the night, each one took turns feeding, changing, and rocking little Ephraim, as they called him. That's cute. Little Ephraim. Clams? Yeah. Baby and fishes. I eat fish by myself like the spinster. Thank you, Mark. Oh, my goodness. Sunrise found them washing pieces of torn sheets for diapers and boiling hastily borrowed baby bottles. Miss Rose did not even open the grocery store at 7. Around 10 o'clock, just when they had made the painful decision that the law must be called into the situation, a timid knock sounded on the back screen door. Miss Ludi rose to find a thin, pathetic little woman struggling valiantly to hold back sobs. My baby, the ragged, wretched creature cried, arms outstretched. Oh, I'm going to cough again. Hold on. That tickle. The Rack sisters gathered her into their arms, cried with her over the tale of sadness, which led her to abandon her baby at the foundling home. And they showered her with caring and food. They promised her a place to stay, food and clothing until she could get on her feet. As the Irish say, the poor young mother had fallen into a pot of butter. Never heard that saying. The poor young mother had fallen into a pot of butter. The moment for the joyous reunion of mother and baby had arrived. They looked at each other expectantly. "You had Ephraim last, sister," stated Miss Ludi. "Oh, no, my dear. I gave him to Magnolia to be fed. After I changed him, I gave him to Rose," said Magnolia. The baby was nowhere to be found. The young mother became distraught. The Rack sisters ran into and over each other in the search. A peddler appeared at the door. The washing machine spewed soapy water over the entire kitchen floor. Pandemonium reigned. Suddenly, all commotion and hand-wringing ceased when an angry wail arose. The young mother and the 5 sisters froze. The peddler fled. The women rushed to the kitchen to find Ephraim safe on the kitchen table where someone had laid him to change his diaper. The young mother laughs. I hate when I. Sorry. Sorry, guys. The young mother clasped her baby to her breast, eyes brimming. The Rack sisters cried with her. Mother and baby remained at the baby hospital and foundling home for 4 months until she found a good job at a sewing factory on the west side of town. After she established her own little apartment and married a bright young man, they came often for Sunday visits. Miss Ludi continued to mend broken dollies and little girls' hearts, and despite the heart-shaking excitement of that fateful summer night, her signs stayed up. An excerpt from The Haunted Bathroom and Other Stories, 1984, Selden Lambert was taken out of that, I guess. Sorry. Go fish. Read a couple more and then we'll be done. Some cute stories tonight from this old magazine, 1986. Grandpa's Sayings by Robert E. Crawford. My grandpa, Tom Runyon, had a lot of sayings and remarks. I remember when someone at the little country church remarked that his clothes didn't fit. He replied, "You can't tell how much hay a man can pitch by the way his overalls hang." Referring once to a young lady who lived up the road that put on airs, Grandpa said, "The apple that's hard to reach ain't necessarily the sweetest." This grandpa's got a saying for everything. Of course, I've forgotten more of Grandpa's sayings than I remember, but over the years, I've recalled quite a few. We were climbing into the wagon after church one Sunday, and Mom said, "Pap, how'd you like the preachin'?" Grandpa's reply was a classic. He could have plowed deeper if he didn't try to do the whole farm. One time, when I nearly fell out of the wagon, Grandpa grabbed my galluses, saying, "Son, don't unhitch the saddle while you're still in it." Grandpa's remarks were not only dry humor, but each was intended to be a lesson about life. Principles, he called them. With to that page, hold on, with with him. The whole of mankind's behavior was a bunch of principles. For instance, you can't tell how a dog will hunt by the way he wags his tail. What Grandpa was really saying was, don't judge an individual by outward signs of enthusiasm. Or maybe he meant what appears to be may be an illusion. Or was it, it's the results that matter, not the promise? I guess I don't remember as many of Grandpa's sayings as I want to, but a lot of his principles have guided my life. He was not an educated man, but he was smart. Sometimes a poorly cow gives the sweetest milk. Yum. Oh, lobster. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. I know. It's me hungry too. Here we go. Friendship Comes in Any Color by Dorothy T. Suter. A little white girl and a little black girl learned a lot about friendship one summer long ago. This was in Wilmington, Delaware in 1921, when I was between 10 and 11 years old. 1921, so there's no way this lady's still living. Right? Because that would make her 111, 10 or 112. Yeah, no, 120, 100. 1921, let's say she was 11. She would be how old today? 1921. Wait, no. Remember, because, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. She would be, yeah, she'd be like 111 or something, 112. Yeah. She's super dead. They're both super dead. No disrespect, lady, Miss Dorothy. But see, we're still laughing about your story. Miss Lizzie Gibson, a black woman who lived a few blocks from my home, was often employed by families in our neighborhood to help with housework during illnesses, at house cleaning time, and so forth. I think she must have been very much needed, for families were much larger in those days. Babies were born at home, and housework was done by hand. No push button appliances then. Lizzie's big hands and cheerful smile helped many a family over some rough spots. She had been coming to work at our house once or twice a week, doing the washing and ironing, when one day she told me that she had a daughter named Catherine, who was about my age, who lived with an aunt on a small farm just outside town. Lizzie was happy that her daughter was coming to spend the summer with her and might even stay to go to school here in the fall. I was anxious to see Catherine, and it seemed a long time before school was over for the summer. But one morning, when Lizzie was hanging the laundry in the backyard, the high wooden gate creaked open just a bit, and a small black girl peeped in, then closed the gate with a bang and ran back down the alley, Lizzie calling after her, "You, Catherine, I told you to stay home till I called you, girl." But Lizzie was talking to the deserted alley. Catherine had run home. I think it was about a week later that Catherine was finally coaxed into the yard, hesitant and shy, but after that, she would sometimes come along when her mother came to work. One rainy day, when Lizzie was ironing, Catherine appeared at our door, and in answer to her mother's mild scolding, she explained, "I got lonesome." "Well, you better get used to that, girl," Lizzie told her. "I got my work to do. Don't you go bothering me. You ain't big enough to help me yet." However, we invited her to stay, and she came over often after that. She would tell me about the chickens and cats and dogs at her aunt's farm, and about an old horse called Joe. His name wasn't Shorty, it was called Joe. This sounded much more interesting to me than life in the city, but Catherine was enjoying the city. Woolworth's 5 and 10 and her new roller skates, something she couldn't do on the country lanes. We shared coloring books, crayons, and cut-out paper dolls. I had a large collection of those, which were published in popular ladies' magazines of those times. I had given some of these dolls and their cutout clothes to Catherine, and when she commented that they were all white children, I carefully recolored some of them with a brown crayon and so created some Negro paper dolls for her. On Sundays, Lizzie and Catherine attended services that were held in the hayloft of a large stable across the street from their house. The stable was owned by a local dairy, which kept their horses and wagons there and allowed the use of the loft on Sundays for religious services. The adults of the congregation sat on boards arranged as benches, and the children sat in the clean hay pile to one side of the loft. I asked Catherine if she thought I could attend, but she said, "I don't think white people are allowed in because I never saw any there." It seemed odd to me to have church services in a stable until Catherine explained, "Reverend says it's all right because Jesus was born in a stable." On the 4th of July that year, this group went on a picnic in 2 large trucks loaned by a local moving company. They sat on blankets spread on hay in the backs of the trucks. I felt a little envious when I heard of this. It sounded like a lot of fun. That evening, Catherine joined my family on our front steps, sharing our sparklers and watching my father and our neighbors along the street as they lit their fireworks at the curb. One piece was called a pinwheel, a circle that was supposed to shoot out sparks as it spun around. It was fastened to our maple tree and lit, but it had not been fastened securely, so when it started to spin, it flew off the tree and rolled down the gutter, colored sparks flying as it rolled along. How we children laughed. One morning, a few weeks after that, Lizzie didn't come to work as she usually did. And that evening, my father went to her house to see if she was all right. The house was locked. No one was home. When she had not arrived, next day, and her house was still locked the next evening, my father asked her next door neighbor about her. I was in the kitchen with my mother when he returned, and we could see by his expression that something was wrong. He was crying as he put his arms around both my mother and me and told us Lizzie had died. Later, we learned that she had gone to spend a weekend on the farm, and as Lizzie was driving the horse and carriage along a narrow road, a passing automobile had frightened the horse, causing him to run away and overturn the carriage. Oh. Several weeks later, we heard a knock at our back door, and Catherine stood there, wearing a black dress and trying to choke back her tears. It must have been too much for her to bear, for she ran to the gate, turned, and called to us, "Aunt says I'm to thank you for being so good to me. Goodbye." I hurried to the gate, calling, "Catherine, come back." But she was running down the alley, just as she had done when I first saw her. I never saw nor heard from her again. I know she must always have remembered that summer that ended so tragically. I hope that somewhere in her memories, she also remembers her little friend who shared the happier moments. Aw. Mike. Oh, gosh. Oh. Oh, that's funny. Oh, my goodness. That's my humor, too. See if I could find one more short one, and then we'd be done. We'd be done. Four Reasons, Four Seasons. Here, this is by Julia M. Heffler. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Looks like a cookout. I was 17 and Tom was 18 when we were wed, and we planned ahead to see the world tomorrow. But first, we'd raise a family to share our joys and sorrow. We lived in the country until our youngest child was 4. Then we found this house. It was a white Spanish stucco with red tile roof, 3 bedrooms, a living room, dining room, kitchen, service porch, and big backyard. It was about 4 blocks from 2 major highways and a shopping district, within walking distance to a grade school, high school, and college. We were all in our springtime. The house was almost new. We were young and it was spring. How we loved the lights and sounds of the city. Tom said, "Well, we spent all our money getting the house, so we'll have to make do with what we've got." That's why our house was furnished in early Goodwill and late Salvation Army, and we loved it. We gave the big bedroom to our 2 girls, Marion and Phyllis. Tommy had the 3rd smallest, and we had the other one. The girls wanted dressing tables that we couldn't afford, so I got 2 apple crates and painted them. Tom spaced them, braced them for strength, and made a nice white enameled top. I made a ruffled skirt with white muslin, and also for the 2 milk stools that we brought with us, I padded I padded the seats, and with 2 stand-up mirrors, it was complete. That's clever, isn't it? The window. Tom got 2 old small chests, painted them, and put them together, saying, "We are getting fancy, chest on chest." We were rewarded with hugs and kisses. Tom got Tommy bunk beds and made him a desk, paneled the walls, and Tommy said, "I've got a mountain cabin." Our room we furnished by degrees. Tom was a dreamer and a builder. He looked at the backyard and said, "I'm going to make a gazebo and put in a cement floor so the kids can have it for parties and dancing. I'll build a small playroom. We'll put in a stove so they can have the fun of making their own hamburgers." When it was finished, he put in 3 lights, and Tommy covered them with green tissue paper, saying, "Look, Mom, instant moonlight." Tom was strictly a family man and a very good father. I liked to get in contests, always aiming for the big one. And one day I won $5,000. Wow, that's a lot of money. This family went wild. We held hands, marching around and chanting, "Mama won a big prize. Mama won a big prize." Tom said, "We'll celebrate with something special." "Not ice cream," the kids said. "Something really special, like eating out and real whipped cream puffs." The spring turned into summer, and the summer into falls and winter, and the children grew, and when they flew, Marion married first, and the following year Phyllis. They were both beautiful brides, and we were happy with their choice. Then Tommy left for military service, and later Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Marquette Medical College. And still we dream and say, if we stay healthy in a year or 2, we'll just up and drive away. Well, the years passed by, and Tom and I still talked and argued. I'd rather. Then one summer, Tom said, "Next month, Julie, you and I are going someplace while we are still together. But man proposes, God disposes, or so the prophets say." When I woke up one morning, my Tom had slept away. Oh, now you want hamburgers. Denise. After the service and in the following week, my children left for their homes. Then I buried my sorrow. I hid it with care. I did not bother others because the world has its share. I thought of it calmly when curtained by night. Then I took it to God, and he made it all right. The fog was creeping in from the sea, changing the landscape into startling shadows on that cold winter morning. As I brushed back my gray hair and looked back through my bifocals, I didn't see an empty gazebo or a dark playroom. I saw young people dancing. I saw stolen kisses in the instant moonlight. I saw the statue of St. Francis of Assisi in Tom's rose garden, footprints in the patio cement, put there years ago in our walk of fame. I saw a happy family marching around like crazy, chanting, "Mama won a big prize. Mama won a big prize. We'll celebrate with something special, really special, like eating out and real whipped cream puffs." I saw Tom bending over his barbecue and heard him say, "This chicken is almost ready. Hurry up with the plates." I heard loud music and young laughter, and I heard the sound of the taxi horn as Tommy was calling out, "Mother, you said you wanted to be alone for 15 minutes. You've been there for almost an hour. If you don't hurry, we'll miss our plane." As I turned the key in the lock for the last time, and took hold of the doorknob. It felt like the hand clasp of an old friend saying goodbye. And just for a second, mind you, just for a second, I thought my old house put its arms around me and whispered, "We have known the beauty of love." Aww. That was cute. As usual, you guys are always so hilarious. Oh, I know, Mike. Okay, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. As always, laughs. Love getting laughs from y'all. Came in right at the end, Deb. Deb. Deb, Deb, Deb. Deb. You're still single. Type again, Deb. That should have made your name be in blue. I forgot to do that before. Denise Renee. There it goes. It came up in blue. Okay. Love you too, Alicia. Love all you guys. Thanks for coming. Listening to this old broad. Night, guys. Bye-bye. If I can end this, here we go.